She sat across from me, a woman who had built a successful company, raised 3 maladjusted but loving children into adulthood, and managed a household for 30 years. Her name was Margaret. She was 62, and she looked absolutely shattered. She wasn't crying, she was past the point of tears. She was vibrating with a kind of cold, hollow shock. She looked at me and said, "I thought I was done with the drama. I thought menopause meant I was finally free to just be me. But I handed him everything. My peace, my savings, my relationship with my daughter. I traded my dignity for the feeling of being seen again, and now I have nothing." Margaret isn't an anomaly. She is a warning. She represents a silent epidemic happening right now among women over 50. We often talk about puberty as the dangerous time for girls, the time when they lose their voices. But nobody talks about the second dangerous window, the years immediately following menopause. This is the time when the silence in the house gets louder, when society starts looking past you rather than at you, and when a biological and psychological storm creates a vulnerability that can destroy decades of hard work in a matter of months. Margaret made specific, identifiable mistakes. They weren't mistakes of intelligence. She was brilliant. They were mistakes of emotional desperation and biological confusion. And if you are watching this, there is a high chance you are either on the brink of making them, or you are already in the middle of one. In over 20 years of clinical practice, specializing in female psychology and relationship dynamics, I have seen this pattern repeat with terrifying precision. I have seen women who navigated the boardroom with iron fists melt into puddles of insecurity because a man paid them a compliment at a time when they felt invisible. I have seen grandmothers alienate their families for a last chance at love that turned out to be a hollow manipulation. The danger here isn't just a broken heart. At this stage of life, the stakes are infinite. We are talking about your financial survival, your emotional legacy, your physical health, and your autonomy. I am going to walk you through exactly what these 3 crucial mistakes are. These are the traps that open up when the estrogen drops and the silence sets in. I need you to listen carefully, and I need you to subscribe to this channel right now. Not for my ego, but because the algorithms are pushing feel-good content that tells you to follow your heart without using your head. You need a voice of reason in your feed that understands the specific psychology of the mature woman. And please, make sure you stay with me until the very end of this video. In the final few minutes, I am going to give you a set of diagnostic questions, a litmus test that will tell you, with brutal honesty, if the relationship or situation you are currently in is healthy love, or if it is the beginning of a decline that you might not recover from. Let's begin with the first mistake. This is the foundation upon which all the other disasters are built. I call this the invisibility panic or the last train syndrome. The first crucial mistake women make after menopause is confusing the relief of being seen with the reality of being loved. To understand this, we have to talk about what happens to a woman's brain and soul during this transition. For 40 years, your biology has been driving you toward connection, nurturing, and reproduction. You have been the center of the family, the object of the male gaze, the person everyone needs. Then, the chemistry changes. The estrogen, which is often called the accommodating hormone or the caring hormone, recedes. You stop turning heads on the street in the same way. The children leave. The phone stops ringing as often. You enter a phase of what anthropologists might call the crone or the wise woman, but what modern society simply calls invisible. This invisibility can be a superpower, but initially, it feels like a death sentence. It feels like you have ceased to matter. In this state of vulnerability, a woman is like a starving person walking through a grocery store. If you haven't eaten in weeks, a moldy piece of bread looks like a feast. I had a client. Let's call her Diane. Diane was 58, a few years post-menopause. She hadn't dated in a decade. She felt like a ghost in her own life. Then she met Robert online. Robert wasn't particularly kind. He wasn't particularly stable. He had a history of financial issues and a temper. But Robert did one thing very well. He looked at Diane with intensity. He told her she was sexy. He told her she had a youthful energy that women her age usually lacked. Diane didn't fall in love with Robert. She fell in love with the reflection of herself she saw in Robert's eyes. She fell in love with the fact that she was still a candidate for romance. She mistook his possessiveness for passion. She mistook his jealousy for care. Why? Because when you feel invisible, being watched feels like being loved. The mistake here is a failure to update your internal validation system. In your 20s, male attention was a currency. In your 60s, male attention is often a distraction or a test. Diane ignored every red flag: his criticism of her friends, his pressure to move in quickly, his dismissive attitude toward her career achievements, because the alternative was the silence of her empty apartment. She was running away from the void, and she ran straight into a cage. The psychological mechanism here is a dopamine spike triggered by validation. Because your baseline hormones have shifted, that spike feels more intense than it did when you were 30. It feels like fate. It feels like the love of a lifetime. It is usually just relief. The consequence for Diane was severe. She isolated herself from her support system because her friends didn't understand their passion. By the time the fog lifted, 2 years later, she was emotionally hollowed out. Her self-esteem was lower than before she met him, and she had lost valuable years she could have spent building a life she actually enjoyed. Here is the concrete rule for this first mistake. Never confuse the relief of being desired with the safety of being cherished. If his attention feels like a rescue boat, you are likely drowning, not dating. This leads us directly into the second crucial mistake, which is perhaps the most tragic because it involves a regression. The second mistake is overcompensating for age by reverting to the good girl role. This is a subtle and dangerous psychological shift. After menopause, many women internalize a deeply ageist narrative. They tell themselves, consciously or unconsciously, I am older now, I am not as firm, not as fertile, not as energetic as I used to be. Therefore, my market value has dropped. If I want to keep a man, especially a man who might be a few years younger, or who is still active, I need to work harder. I need to be easier. I need to be the cool girl. I see powerful, sovereign women who run corporations suddenly turning into anxious teenagers in their relationships. They stop asserting their boundaries because they are terrified that if they are difficult, he will leave them for someone younger. They start overfunctioning. They do the emotional labor. They cook the meals, they plan the trips, they tolerate bad moods, and they engage in sexual dynamics that they aren't actually comfortable with, all to prove that they are still got it. Let me tell you about Alina. Alina was sick. She was a retired academic, a brilliant woman with a sharp wit. She met a man named Arthur, a retired engineer. Arthur was rigid. He liked things a certain way. He didn't like to talk about feelings. He didn't like to compromise. In her 40s, Alina would have eaten Arthur alive. She would have seen his rigidity as a bore and walked away. But at 64, Alina felt the pressure of time. She thought, there aren't many good men left. So, she began to shrink. She stopped expressing her political opinions because they annoyed him. She stopped seeing her grandchildren as often because he found them noisy. She started dressing differently, wearing things that made her feel uncomfortable but that he said he liked. She was paying a tax on her age. She was paying a youth tax with her dignity. She was trying to compensate for her perceived lack of value by being useful and compliant. His is a tragedy, because menopause is biologically designed to be the time when a woman stops caring about pleasing others. The drop in estrogen is supposed to make you less agreeable, more assertive, more focused on your own truth. By reverting to the good girl, you are fighting your own evolution. You are suppressing the wisdom you have earned. The danger here is that you attract a specific type of predator. The man who wants a mummy, a maid, or a nurse, not a partner. If you signal that you are willing to overwork to keep him, he will let you, and he will lose respect for you in the process. Alina eventually came to me because she was suffering from severe insomnia and anxiety. She couldn't understand why. She had a man, she had a nice home, but her body knew. Her body knew she was betraying herself every single day to keep a man who only loved the version of her that served him. She had made the mistake of thinking her value was a depreciating asset that needed to be subsidized by servitude. The reality is, your value after menopause is not in your ability to accommodate, but in your ability to discern. Your value is your wisdom, your stability, your depth. If you have to shrink to fit into a relationship, you are dating a life that is too small for you. Here is the concrete rule for the second mistake. If you feel you must earn his presence by suppressing your needs or over-delivering on labor, you are not in a relationship. You are in an unpaid service position. Now, we must discuss the third mistake. This is the one that destroys legacies. This is the one that ruins the relationship between mothers and children. This is the one that leaves women destitute in their 70s. The third crucial mistake is the autonomy breach, or merging finances and households too quickly out of a fear of future loneliness. When you are 25 and you move in with a boyfriend and merge bank accounts, if it goes wrong, you have 40 years to earn that money back. You have resilience. When you are 55, 60, or 70, your financial foundation is your lifeline. It is the result of every morning you woke up early to go to work. It is the result of every sacrifice you made. It is the soil in which your future rests. Yet, I see women treat this security with reckless abandon after menopause. Why? Because the fear of the empty house becomes irrational. There is a narrative that says, dying alone is the worst thing that can happen. So, women invite men into their homes, or they sell their homes to buy a place with a new partner they have known for less than 2 years. They put names on deeds. They lend money to help him out with a business venture because they want to support his dreams, and they want to be the supportive partner. Let's talk about Sarah. Sarah was a widow. Her husband had left her with a decent life insurance policy and a paid-off home. She was set. She was safe. She met a man at her grief support group, classic place for predators to hunt. By the way, he was charming, sad, and seemingly vulnerable. He told her he was having temporary cash flow problems with his real estate business. Sarah, operating from that place of caring and wanting to build a new future, loaned him $50,000. Then, he suggested they save money by living together. He moved into her house. Slowly, he began to critique her children. He told Sarah that her son was only visiting her to check on his inheritance. He planted seeds of doubt. He isolated her. Sarah made the mistake of thinking that love requires total merger. She forgot that at this stage of life, love should require total respect for autonomy. She didn't protect her boundaries because she thought boundaries were a barrier to intimacy. The reality of late-life relationships is that living apart together is often the healthiest model. You have your life, your home, your routine. He has his. You come together for companionship and joy, but you do not dismantle the infrastructure of your existence for a romance. When Sarah's children tried to intervene, she cut them off. She felt they were being greedy. She defended the man who was draining her accounts. This is a very common pattern. The new partner creates an us against the world dynamic. By the time Sarah realized what was happening, the money was gone. The man left for a younger woman, and she had to humble herself to ask her estranged children for help. This mistake stems from a misunderstanding of what a partner is for in the second half of life. A partner is not there to complete you. You are already complete. A partner is not there to rescue you financially. You are your own rescuer. A partner is the cherry on top of the sundae, not the bowl and the spoon. If you try to make him the bowl, everything spills. Here is the concrete rule for the third mistake. Your financial security and your home are the non-negotiable borders of your kingdom. Never hand over the keys to the castle to a man who hasn't spent decades helping you build the walls. These three mistakes, the invisibility panic, the good girl regression, and the autonomy breach, create a trifecta of destruction. But why do they happen? Why do smart women fall for this? It is because we have not been given a healthy map for postmenopausal love. We are trying to use the map from our 20s. In our 20s, high drama felt like passion. In our 20s, merging lives was the goal. In our 20s, changing ourselves to be liked was the norm. But you are not in your 20s. You are in a sacred phase of life. You are in the phase of authority. When you fall into these traps, the consequences escalate beyond just a bad breakup. We have to look at the broader risks. The impact on your health can be catastrophic. Older bodies do not process cortisol, the stress hormone, the same way younger bodies do. Living in a state of walking on eggshells with a man, or dealing with the anxiety of a financial breach, can trigger autoimmune flare-ups, chronic insomnia, heart issues, and rapid aging. Your body keeps the score, and at 60, the score is settled quickly. Furthermore, there is the emotional legacy you leave behind. If you allow a new partner to drive a wedge between you and your adult children, you are rewriting the history of your family. I have seen grandchildren who do not know their grandmother because she is with a man who doesn't like children, and she is too afraid to stand up to him. Is that the memory you want to leave? That you chose a temporary, insecure attachment over the permanent bond of blood and history? So, what is the alternative? Does this mean you should just buy a cat and lock the door? Absolutely not. Love after menopause can be the most profound, rewarding love of your life. But it must be a different kind of love. It must be a love that is based on two whole, sovereign individuals walking side by side, not leaning on each other so hard that they topple over. The healthy alternative is what I call sovereign dating. This involves a few key shifts in mindset. First, you must embrace the joy of missing out. You must be so in love with your own life, your own routine, your own coffee in the morning, your own friends, that a man has to be extraordinary to be worth disrupting it. When you are not afraid of being alone, you are immune to the invisibility panic. You don't date out of hunger. You date out of curiosity. Second, you must practice ruthless authenticity. No more good girl. If your back hurts, you say it. If you don't like his friends, you don't go. If you want to sleep in your own bed, you go home. A man who is worthy of you will respect this. In fact, a healthy man in his 60s or 70s is often looking for a woman who knows who she is, not a woman who is trying to be a chameleon. Third, consider the living apart together model. Keep your finances separate. Keep your homes separate, at least for a very long time. Let the intimacy be emotional and physical, but not logistical. This protects your legacy, and it actually keeps the romance alive longer, because you are not arguing about whose turn it is to empty the dishwasher. You have to ask yourself a question regarding your identity and your self-worth. You have spent decades building the woman you are. You survived childbirth, or career climbs, or loss, or illness. You have survived 100% of your bad days. Why would you discount that value now? Why would you sell that heavily discounted to the first bidder? You are not leftovers, you are the vintage wine. You are the complex, rich narrative. And you need a partner who knows how to read a long book, not someone who just looks at the pictures in a comic book. Now, as I promised at the beginning, I want to give you a self-diagnostic test. I want you to close your eyes for a moment if you can, or just take a deep breath. Ask yourself these questions, and answer them with the first thing that comes to your gut, not your head. Question 1. When you see his name pop up on your phone, does your body feel a warm calmness, or does it feel a spike of anxious adrenaline? Be honest. Anxiety is not passion. Anxiety is a warning. Question 2. Are you hiding parts of this relationship from your children or your oldest, most trusted friends? Do you find yourself editing the stories you tell them because you know, deep down, they would disapprove? Secrecy is the playground of dysfunction. Question 3. Have you changed your financial habits since meeting him? Are you spending more than you usually do, or lending money, or paying for things to avoid awkwardness? Question 4. Do you feel like you can be tired, sick, or boring around him, or do you feel like you have to be on to keep his interest? Question 5. If this relationship stayed exactly as it is right now, with the same amount of affection, the same amount of conflict, the same amount of anxiety for the next 10 years, would you feel peaceful, or would you feel trapped? If you answered anxious, yes to hiding, yes to spending, no to being tired, or trapped, then you are already in the danger zone. You are making the mistakes we discussed. But here is the good news. It is not too late to fix it. You have the power of the no. You have the power of the walk away. The beauty of being a woman of a certain age is that you have nothing left to prove to anyone. You are free. Don't use that freedom to build a new prison. Use it to build a sanctuary. The goal of your remaining years should be peace. Radical, unshakable peace. If a man adds to that peace, he is welcome. If he threatens it, he is a biological hazard, and you must treat him as such. You have lived too long and fought too hard to settle for a love that makes you feel small. Menopause is not the end of your life as a woman. It is the beginning of your life as a queen. But a queen does not beg the jester for attention. A queen sits on her throne, and she decides who is worthy of approaching. Be the queen. Protect your heart, protect your wallet, and protect your peace. I want you to take a moment and think about one friend of yours who needs to hear this message. Share this with her. We have to look out for each other because the world will not do it for us. And if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. I will be releasing more videos on how to navigate the specific, complex, emotional landscape of life after 50. Remember, you are not running out of time. You are running into your power. Don't give it away.